I do want to read to you one thing that we deal with in Solid Secret Agents about the Yalta Conference. I think most people here, this is a knowledgeable audience, know about Yalta, and that at Yalta, vast concessions were made to the Soviets, including confirming their control of Eastern Europe, but also giving them, in essence, control of China because of their takeover of Manchuria and the railroads and the ports, and because of other agreements that were made at Yalta to get them into the war against Japan, although they were in that war for 5 days before the Japanese announced surrender, for which they get control of the Far East after having done nothing for 4 years. But the histories of this would make you believe it was just all inevitable, nothing could be done about it. Well, the principal American who didn't know what he was doing about China and other things at Yalta was Alger Hiss. Now, the conventional histories tell us, one of Diana's great critics, a man named Conrad has told us several times that Alger Hiss at Yalta was totally insignificant, that he was a mere clerk. He didn't know anything. He was a lowly, munchkin. Totally false. But that's what's in all the conventional histories. And I want to, part of the research that I did for doing this book was about Yalta, which you've got to do. One thing I would say to everybody who's interested in this stuff, you can, I hate to say this because I write books, don't trust books. Most of them are recycled error and disinformation about all of this. All of it is, to me, bogus in one way or another. It's been covered up. It is still covered up to a large extent. I went down to Charlottesville, Virginia, after some searching to find the papers of a man named Edward Stettinius, Jr., who was the Secretary of State at the time of Yalta. And he had held that post at the time of Yalta for 2 months. 2 months. He was a very naive person. He knew almost nothing about foreign policy. He'd been Under Secretary of State for some time, but he really knew very little. And I go into in his book about how much he didn't know. And he was reliant on Hiss for knowledge of almost every issue. President Roosevelt at Yalta was virtually dead. I am convinced, the more I study this, that Roosevelt did not know half or two of Yalta. What was done there was all manipulated underneath that level. And this is the way a lot of things work in government, as we know. Bills that are passed that nobody's read. Who's writing these bills? And it's the same kind of thing in the Cold War. Alger Hiss was probably the American at Yalta who knew the most and did the most. And what I found in the Stettinius papers was a whole bunch of stuff that has never been reported by our standard historians glorifying Franklin Roosevelt. In the archives of Edward Stettinius, I found the notes of Walter Johnson where he's trying to question Stettinius about what happened at Yalta and who did what and so forth. And so he asked him a series of questions, and I'll do this very briefly if I can, about different topics that happened. This is in the notes in Charlottesville, Virginia, of Stettinius' papers. So he asked me about the signing of a German occupation zone to France, which was a controversial issue at Yalta. Stettinius told Johnson, quote, Alger Hiss can fill in the background. Then on further comment about the role of France, the former secretary said, see Alger Hiss about this. On the issue of forced German labor, which was part of Yalta, the conscripted slave labor as reparations to the Soviets was agreed to by us at Yalta, even though Stettinius didn't know it. He told Johnson it just didn't happen. It just happened on his watch. He didn't know about it. And on this issue, Stettinius said, see Alger, and we'll discuss this again. Further discussion of the German occupation. This is a major issue at Yalta, of course. February 1945, Germans surrendered in May. Hiss would remember, consult him on the question of who drafted the Yalta Declaration of Liberated Europe, which is a repetition of the Atlantic Charter, basically. See Alger Hiss again. On voting arrangements for the UN, see Alger Hiss about this, and so forth, and so on. This is the record which is denied to this day. It's not something that was denied back then. It's denied right now. This is the history of what has gone on, and the whole thing's been mantled in deception and denial and refusal to face the truth, which reflects against the standard narrative. A lot more to say about it, but I'm going to stop right there. Thank you. Thank you.
Well done, Stan. Thank you.